Welcome everyone to another Noria webinar. Now I'm pretty excited about this one because we're going to be talking about scaling reliability. It was INX International and they aligned people, processes, and PdM and had some great responses from this. Now, through this webinar, for those of you that may have not been through a Noria webinar before, please know that this is a moderated webinar. So if you have any questions, you can put them in the questions tab of the window using the Q&A feature, and someone will be responding to you. Now, we will try to take as many as we can during the webinar. If your question doesn't get answered during that time, don't worry about it. Someone will be reaching out to you with an answer. And for those of you that have submitted questions already, thank you so much for that. Now, when we talk about INX and what they were able to do, I think it's important to get people that were involved in this project in on the call. So we're going to bring in Heather Lavero. So Heather, you're with us?
Hi, yes, hello.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for joining us. And why don't you give everyone a little introduction for yourself?
Hi, my name's Heather Lavero. I'm an Enterprise Solutions Director with AssetWatch, and we work with enterprises like INX to roll out condition-based monitoring on their most critical assets and work with them on their asset reliability programs.
So to let everyone know who INX is, I think it's important to realize that they have been around their products their entire life and may have not even realized it, right?
Yes, no, definitely. They make ink for everything that we see in our daily lives.
Yeah, I know. I was, pretty excited when I was hearing about them talking about like ink on aluminum cans for any number of brands. Right? You're walking down the grocery store. Most of the ink on those cans comes from this facility specifically, right?
Yes, that's correct. And they print on many other things as well.
So as we start to go through here, we're going to be talking about how INX scaled up their predictive strategy, right? Obviously utilizing AssetWatch as a linchpin for this, correct?
Yes, definitely. We worked hand in hand with them to help roll out their enterprise program.
And I think it's interesting because we're going to be talking about those cultural shifts, that they made during this reliability journey about, not only adopting technology, but also trusting the technology.
Yes, it definitely takes time and a team to make it happen. INX has an extraordinary team of reliability experts within their plants, and we worked with each team on the best way to make it happen and be successful.
And I love that it's not just like an AI algorithm that's doing this. They're actually using people, and AssetWatch uses the condition monitoring engineers, real people reviewing data. So it's not just a nuisance alarm. No, it is kind of verified, right?
It's definitely verified by your AssetWatch condition monitoring expert. They are ensuring that we remove all the noise, right? So we want to make sure at AssetWatch that you're receiving a validated alert that's going to really make an impact within your team and quickly into the insights into your assets.
So I think with all that being said, we've laid kind of the groundwork of what's going on, and we know that, predictive maintenance programs and proactive maintenance programs don't occur overnight. So how about we cut away a little bit and go see INX's facility and what they actually did.
My name is Michael Potelsky. I am the Director of Operational Excellence here at INX International Ink Company. My role specifically is to assist with our Industry 4.0 initiatives. So here at INX Charlotte, it's a manufacturing environment, traditionally with a 3-shift operation. We run a first, second, third shift, Monday through Friday, and what we manufacture is 2-piece metal ink. That ink gets applied to the outside of the aluminum beverage can at can manufacturers. So when you're walking into the retail sector, whether it's a Harris Teeter or Kroger or Walmart, and you're walking down the aluminum can beverage aisle, whether it's soda or beer, all ink on the outside of those beverage cans are coming from this facility in Southwest Charlotte. We have about 99% of all of that business within North America, and we are international at many other countries too. AssetWatch is one of our key partners here at the site, and we're looking to integrate AssetWatch to couple it with our Odin Technologies platform so that all systems can talk with each other. Utilizing the AssetWatch app and desktop monitoring And like I mentioned, our weekly engineering calls with AssetWatch, we're able to look at that trend analysis and identify what our gaps and our mean time between failure actuals are versus our targets. And now for the first time, we're actually achieving those targets year over year over the last 5 years. So we're very happy with what AssetWatch has provided us so far, not only with minimizing and eliminating the long-term downtime events that we've had in the past, but also with all of the data collection and trend analysis and the reporting that the dashboard provides us. We wanted to invest in AssetWatch and expedite the whole process with their integration because what we were seeing in the past were catastrophic long-term downtime events with our mills and supporting equipment. With that comes obviously a lot of ink that we were not making during those downtime events. And when AssetWatch provided the offerings that they had with their system with regard to predictive monitoring, we jumped on it very quickly.
My name is Borpit Intawiwat. I'm the Director of Engineering for Process Technology and Automation. Before AssetWatch was brought on board, it was more of a reactive situation. When the equipment breaks down, we'd be scrambling to find out the cause of why the breakdown occurred. What made the motor stop? And it was like trying to put out a fire, a forest fire. And then when you have multiple of these forest fires, it's just all production stops. We couldn't get any product out the door. And our customers were calling us all the time, saying, "Where's my ink? Where's my ink?"
Joe Torsha, I'm the plant engineer. I take care of the maintenance department here. Before AssetWatch, we had a lot of firehouse type maintenance going on. We were rushing from one problem to another. We were inundated with too many catastrophic issues. We knew we had lots of problems that we were facing, but we just didn't have time to get to them in time before they became major downtime events by catastrophes.
We had two potential catastrophic situations where AssetWatch really helped us visualize what was going on with both of those pieces of equipment. Those two pieces of equipment alone saved us enough money from an ROI standpoint to pay for our AssetWatch subscription for the next 2.5 years. Not to mention all the ink production that we could have lost if both of those pieces of equipment would have seen that long-term downtime. So from an ROI standpoint, we feel confident in what AssetWatch is providing. Obviously, we don't want to have situations where even AssetWatch is identifying potential situations, but in the case where the sensors and the engineers are picking up, trend analysis where, hey, we need to have our maintenance department specifically look at certain instances. So far, it's been very smooth to work with AssetWatch and make sure that we don't have these catastrophic breakdowns.
Vibration analysis is one of the most widely used out there. We had trialed some other sensors before in the past, and they worked off of Bluetooth, so you had to walk up to them with your phone and connect to it. There's way more benefits from having a sensor that's connected via your hotspot and hubs, and we get the real-time data that we're getting from AssetWatch.
Preventive maintenance tools have been around for a long time. They're mainly for oil and gas industries, things that run in steady state conditions that don't change very, very, very often. In our industry now, and particularly in our processes, we have a lot of SKUs. That means different motor draws, different power consumptions, different vibrational patterns, things that traditional tools can't process very effectively. And when we talk to these other companies, they're like, "Well, yeah, we can do it." I know you can, but can you adapt your tools to our processes? And most of the time the answer is, let us try, and it's usually not very effective. When we brought in AssetWatch, one of the key components that they had was the artificial intelligence component of it. So what they did do was they analyzed the vibrational patterns of our motors, of our bearings, and then, this is exciting for us, is that there is a human component that actually analyzes it or confirms what AI is predicting. Without that human component, we're just kind of like, well, maybe it's true, maybe it's not. It's unconfirmed. So as the human component teaches the AI improves and gets better and better. We get emails or alerts multiple times through a day. A lot of these emails that says, we have a abnormal vibration pattern on, for example, AM1 mill. Can you go check it out? Or they'll say, this vibration pattern indicates that you need to add some grease into the bearing. Could you please do it? And there's a learning feedback loop in there, because when we actually do what they ask, and they give us feedback saying, yep, that vibration pattern diminished, went down and minimized, that's the positive feedback, and then we can act on it. So yeah, this AssetWatch is working for us.
We have a dust collector system here to ensure that our operation is clean. It's a clean working environment. We're dealing with a lot of dust and pigment with regard to our operation. So an important piece of our equipment that we have here at the facility is a dust collector. We ended up having a bearing problem within that unit, and AssetWatch was able to predictively tell us, please have your maintenance department check on this. Prior to AssetWatch, if we were in a traditional model and we were just trying to follow up on that based on preventative maintenance or a catastrophic breakdown, we did not have the parts on hand in order to replace it. So if it would have catastrophically failed, we would have been down for about 6.5 weeks because we would have had to source the parts without knowing that the unit was going into failure. So with the information that AssetWatch provided us, we were able to predictively tell what was going on. Our maintenance techs went out, verified that we had a bearing problem. They were able to source the spare part in time, and it was a 3-hour change out instead of having multiple weeks where the plant would have been down for about 6 weeks. We were able to see on the onset 2 different events from a predictive monitoring standpoint that kept us from a 3-week shutdown with our dust collector. And then we also had a predictive monitor alert that came up on one of our motors on one of our main pieces of equipment that would have been a 6-week downtime event. And we were able to get ahead of that with our maintenance team based on the information that AssetWatch provided us. So during our weekly meetings with the AssetWatch engineers, they provided us the trend analysis based on both of those pieces of equipment, and we were able to do routine preventative maintenance on both of those pieces of equipment in order to keep ourselves from long-term downtime.
The analysis and monitoring of these motors is critical, especially the bearing unit is critical. If we can schedule a preventive maintenance in to replace parts that are predicting to be worn before our next maintenance cycle, that's a huge cost savings. When a motor goes down and we don't have parts to repair it, it's not only the cost of the motor, it's the cost of the air shipment of that motor in, the lost downtime of production. It's a cascading effect that we have no control over. With AssetWatch, at least we have some control over what we can repair and replace. Without the predictive analytics from AssetWatch, we always ran equipment to failure because we didn't know when the equipment would stop working. But now, we've got tools to prevent that from happening. Changing the culture of any organization is difficult, especially when there's no feedback or response back from that change. What AssetWatch has done for us is to provide that feedback to enable culture change. In addition, management themselves have to push down from top, says, this is what you got to do. It's all top-down driven.
AssetWatch had one of their technicians that came out and helped install all the equipment. We had one of our technicians lead them around to the different pieces of machinery. We got everything located where it needed to be. After we had everything going and set up, we did a lot of collaboration with them so that everybody could understand how our equipment actually worked. And they did take the time so that they could understand that, so we had better information coming from them as well. With the CME, we have a recurring meeting that we go over any open items that we're continuing to watch or monitor, bring things back up and talk about them, where they're at and what we're doing about them, and see how they are. If we have anything that comes up, we have the ability to send the messages either through the AssetWatch app or the system, or we can pick up the phone and call. Every time we've had no problem getting a hold of anybody and answered every question we've had so far. Having somebody else that was on board and actually watching it all the time, that was a huge benefit right off the bat.
So as Director of Operational Excellence for INX, we're using the Charlotte location as a baseline hub to try out new technology, partner with new companies like AssetWatch. And then once we prove it out here at the showcase site, we are then horizontally deploying that technology and those systems out to our other sites. So we're very happy with what AssetWatch has provided us so far, not only with minimizing and eliminating the long-term downtime events that we've had in the past, but also with all of the data collection and trend analysis and the reporting that the dashboard provides us.
All right, well, welcome back here to the studio. I think that was a pretty transformational journey that you saw him walk through. Obviously getting some great metrics. I love whenever people are able to talk about reducing, stopping failures, catching failures early, avoiding a lot of the expedited shipping fees and that reactive cycle. I think that's always great. And with this, Heather, I want to dive a little bit deeper. I've got some questions I want to ask you based on, your involvement and kind of what you've seen across the industry. So have you seen more enterprise teams evolve in their approach to reliability over the last few years?
Yes, definitely. Nowadays, enterprise teams have really shifted from reactive maintenance to proactive and predictable reliability strategies. Just a few years ago, reliability was still often siloed within maintenance teams and focused on fixing failures after they occurred. And today, really, leading organizations like INX treat reliability as a cross-functional priority, really integrating their systems and their tools to make sure that they can make the best decisions for their plants and equipment.
Yeah, I think so many people are realizing that, we can't operate in silos. We've got to, work together, and there is no shortage of data that is available to interpret and try to figure out what's going on. And to see someone actually take that and use it for meaningful change, that is good even culturally within the facility.
Definitely. It just helps everyone's days, really bringing things, from a reactive environment to a predictive, and really having a game plan every day they come to the plant to ensure they know exactly what they need to focus on to be successful.
So as you've been working with the industry for a while now, if you were able to give us maybe some of the hallmarks, or what do you think some of the most successful teams do especially well? Like, what do they hone in on when they are working on improving reliability?
What most teams do when looking to improve on reliability, there's really three things that I think are the most important to really be successful. First and foremost is having a team that looks at standardizing what they're looking to accomplish. When you can standardize and build a strong foundation, consistent across, your plants, and then make sure that everyone is aligned, then go out and lay out your advanced tools that you'd like to implement, that's really going to be number one, right? Standardizing what assets and what failure modes and processes are most important, and then really look at what technology is going to best provide you value. That would be number one. Number two, really acting on the data and the insights that you're receiving from the technology you do deploy. A lot of times, companies will go in and take on a technology and then not know how to really utilize it or take the data that they've been giving to, make it real, right? So acting on the insights and not just having them generated is critical to the success of a program.
Yeah, I think that's where a lot of things fall apart, because there's a lot of technologies out there, but then actually using that data and taking action on that data, I think your step two that you're talking about is vitally important.
And then taking it a step further, third is really driving adoption culturally across your plants is really the next major thing, because you can be successful at the first plant and then think it's going to be just as successful at the plants, moving on in the process. And really you need a great leadership team that's going to help, extend that adoption to the plants, to roll it out on an enterprise level so that all plants will one day, have that same mindset.
Yeah, it is so incredible how much of this revolves around the culture. Because, we always say that reliability is about 80% culture and then 20% everything else. It's having that team that trusts each other, that can communicate, that are able to go past some of these roadblocks without getting frustrated. It's such a vitally important aspect to improving the program overall.
Yes, investing in training, aligning on incentives, and ensuring that operators and technicians can trust the data and really utilize and benefit from the system. That's when it really, the light bulb, I call it, goes on. And then that's when adoption starts to happen.
Yeah, in our trainings, we talk a lot about proactive maintenance. And, we focus primarily on lubrication. And unfortunately, a lot of failures in machinery are still based upon lubrication, and in particular, it's still because of contamination, dirt, water, things like that getting the lubricant. And we say that there are 3 steps as well. Set targets, so it could be cleanliness targets. I mean, this is the same as you thinking about selecting a technology. Then we say second step is to take actions to achieve that target. So for you, it'd be, all right, we've got now sensors in place. What are we actually going to do to minimize the faults, get early warning, all of that stuff? And then third, we say measure that frequently. So taking oil samples, doing whatever we need to do to actually see how we are tracking against that target. So it sounds like our 3-step process, very similar to yours.
100%. And as you know, AssetWatch strongly believes in oil analysis and lubrication. And those two, having vibration, temperature, and lubrication, really gives you the best, information regarding your assets and, you can possibly have.
Oh, absolutely. All right. What is something that a customer has shared recently that has either inspired you or surprised you?
There are so many things, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the biggest thing I say that a customer recently has shared with me would be, it's not really just the win of preventing a major failure, right? It's really the shift in how their team communicates. It's seeing that now teams between maintenance and production will now trust one another instead of debating opinions. They're aligning around data and really making use of the data versus, it being one-sided. And I think that's the biggest win, because you have people on the plant floor that may know something's wrong with an asset, but production may question it and just keep running. But them being able to know something's wrong, have the data that something's wrong, and then there being that common, fact that, hey, we do need to schedule this downtime and fix this before something occurs. Once that starts happening, that really makes enterprise teams, I think, very confident in what they have.
Yeah, we all love success stories, right? Someone that we walked in and there's frustration, there's, breakdowns. I mean, everyone's kind of miserable. And then you say, all right, fast forward 6 months, a year, whatever it may be, and this entire process has changed. I love it when people come up and say, hey, we had this one machine, and this was pretty recently, it's a paper manufacturer. Man, we've got this one linear bearing. We were changing it out every 2 weeks. And following, either lessons they learned through classes, or if we've gone out and done an assessment or engineering with them, and they've now seen, a year and the machine's still operating. They haven't had to swap out the bearing. I love those things because it's so impactful, right? You're not only impacting the bottom line of a facility, you're impacting someone's personal life. This is work-life balance that they're not as frustrated. Maybe they get a little bit more control over their time when they're at the plant, where they're not getting as much callback. Whenever they leave and they go to their kid's ball game, they're not worried that their phone's going to ring and have to go back in to fix something. I think that is just so important for people to understand that it's not just machines are running longer. No, I mean, it's impacting people's lives.
Definitely, especially having, the mobile app and being able to see your assets from your phone if you wanted to, and knowing, really keeping that human in loop. That goes back to the point of the human in the loop, right? When something is, ultra critical, you can literally trust that your analyst at AssetWatch is really going to make sure, if something needs attention, that they know who's at the plant at that time and can take action versus, you having to come back to the plant because you're not sure what's going on. That's part of the program and the partnership, really.
All right, so let's say that a company is just now adopting technology, or they're really trying to improve their reliability program. What do you think are some of the early signs that it's gaining momentum and it's heading in the right direction? What are some of the things they should be looking at?
Really, I'd say number one is increased engagement from the teams utilizing the system. Really seeing that, teams are taking ownership and proactively checking the information rather than be them having it being sent to them maybe from a leader that, initially had set up the system would be number one.
So that means that they're actually interacting with it. It's actually getting used. Let's say it that way.
Yeah, exactly. That they're, looking at the dashboard, they're reading the alerts, and then the next step, really what we see as a KPI is faster response to comment or communication.
Okay.
So when there is an alarm or a recommendation that goes in, that they are responsive in the platform, whether it be from their mobile device or in the software, a phone call, an email, but us just seeing that engagement back and us knowing that, they're communicating, collaborating with us on that recommendation.
Yeah, that's an interesting one, right? Because it's the actual response time, right? Hey, we've set up a flare, something's going on, and then seeing how long it takes for someone to actually respond to it through any modality at that point. That's an interesting one, and probably one I hadn't thought about.
Yes, and then the next really is when you have repeatable wins, right? You go from one-off state saves in the beginning to just having repeatable wins, and it really just shows that it helps, reduce any unplanned downtime and just extend the life of your equipment when you see that happen.
Yeah, and I think we get tied up, on kind of like long-term things like reduction of overtime hours. We think about an increase of mean time between failure, maybe a reduction of maintenance spend. But those are very long-term, so I think it's good to have these things kind of early on, what they can expect to see.
Yes, generally, once you implement a system like AssetWatch, you're going to have insight into your equipment within a matter of, in some scenarios, I've seen it within hours or even like a day, where you're going to be able to choose to take that information and investigate and advise back to us what your findings are. And that's really when it starts. And then from there, it's all about the partnership and the collaboration with the teams that really just starts, every day just becoming part of their process when they're working with their teams.
So you're, with various people in the industry and probably different industries themselves. What opportunities or things out there that you feel like customers are like really excited about, or people that are ready to adopt, even if they're not saying it directly? What do you think of these next big things?
I think the more technology available to teams, the better, and the more that you can integrate multiple data points, whether it be production runtime, equipment health, like we do here at AssetWatch, taking in vibration, temperature, lubrication, and other types of partnerships that we have into the platform, really just brings a holistic, picture into what they can have as like an optimal asset management program.
Yeah, I think the interconnectedness of platforms and technology and everything, that's where it seems like a lot of people are trying to get, because if we have all these disparate systems and all these disparate technologies out there, it's hard to keep your fingers on the pulse of each individual one. So having some of these things more collective, to where the data is more available in one place as opposed to a dozen, a lot of people are moving in that direction, that I could see as well.
Yes, easy ways of communication for sure. Anything that can make everyone at the plant's lives easier
All right, so
is the ultimate goal.
that is the ultimate goal. So when people kind of first start out in this and they're saying, all right, we're going to invest in reliability or predictive maintenance, where do you think are the biggest opportunities, kind of starting out?
Really, every plant has to be treated, special, right? We really need to look at what's going to provide that plant value. And once we identify where their points are that are going to make a difference, we really zero in on that and make sure that we deliver on what they're looking to do. And so really, it's going to depend plant by plant on how we're going to be successful within our teams. But really looking at quickly, identifying how we can care for their equipment.
Now, Heather, I'm excited to hear that because I think all too often people fall into this one-size-fits-all approach. So to hear that you're actually, spending the time with a customer and saying, all right, where is the actual pain point, right? Not where do we typically start? No. Tell me for you what it actually is. I'll use the lubrication speech again, right? So I can go in there and I mean, sometimes people are screaming, man, the lubricants that we're using are trash. We need to move something different. And then you start to review it and you realize, no, it's not the lubricants that are bad. It's actually how we're applying them. So let's not worry about, going and buying either a more expensive or a different brand or something like that. Let's focus on the practices. Let's focus on the tools. Let's focus on application of actually getting it there. And that's probably going to fix your problem more so than, buying a different tube of grease.
Absolutely. And the same goes with the vibration and temperature program, really. It goes hand in hand.
All right, so Heather, we're kind of running a little bit low on time here, but I want to be a good host. So with that being said, kind of closing shots here. If there's one thing or a couple things that you want people to walk away from this webinar knowing, what do you think it is?
I think the most important thing when we walk away from this webinar today that we think of when we're looking into diving into a predictive maintenance program within your enterprise is that you find a partner like INX and AssetWatch and Noria, and a partner you really trust and support you and your team for your continued success to really just optimal maintenance strategies and having a really good foundation with your partners. It's finding the right partner and ensuring the success of that partnership.
Hey, I love it there, Heather. So thank you so much for joining us. And for everyone else on this webinar, thank you guys for attending. Once again, if your question didn't get answered during this webinar, rest assured someone will be reaching out to you. I really like to thank AssetWatch for sponsoring this webinar and the content. And for more information on AssetWatch, you can visit the link in the chat. As for me, I am Wes Cash with Noria, and we'll catch you here on the next Noria webinar.